Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, welcome. Happy Wednesday. Look, first, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about how tech CEOs are on the hot seat in Washington as they have to make themselves, explain themselves to lawmakers about the impact of social media. We'll have that conversation. Also, new video of that horrific beating of our brother Tyre Nichols has been released. More footage of showing there was a conspiracy to cover up what was done to our brother to try to make him seem like he was a drug addict and not just a man who was mistakenly pulled over and whose life was at the hands of these 5 officers. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also later on, let's talk about old school politics versus the next new generation, how there is a struggle in South Carolina to get the next generation of Black leaders on board to supporting President Biden. We'll have that big conversation. And later, if we have a chance to get to it, it looks like Representative Cori Bush is under investigation for simply trying to secure her life in this time of political turmoil. So we'll have that conversation and want to hear from you. Make sure y'all stick around and join us in the discussion right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Wednesday, folks. We are officially at the middle of the week, and this is the last day of January. Wow, can't believe it. Last time I remember, we were celebrating bringing in 2024, and boom, we're here at January 31st, tomorrow kicking off Black History Month. Man, oh man, time is flying, folks. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we are streaming live on our home network of blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure y'all do your due diligence. Check us out on the website. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media. And as we always ask you to do, is we ask for your support to power us through this digital movement. We are creating the content. We are having the conversations. You're listening to change agents and newsmakers each and every day on this network. And we want to continue to do that great work. So go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and please support us. And we thank you for your support and for your attention here on the show and on this network. Also, we are streaming live on Amazon platforms, on Amazon News, on your Fire TV. We're also on Amazon Prime Video. You can check us out on the Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, then News. We're also on the Freevee Network, where you can find us on now under News. Just check us out on Black Star Network on the Freevee Network. And we're on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can find us there. Search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, the News, and Opinion. All right. Also, folks, we are streaming on Roland Martin's social media pages. So check us out on Roland Martin's Facebook page, where you can find the illustrious Culture Crew on the Facebook page. We're also on the Roland Martin's YouTube channel, and where you can also find us there. And on the X platform. So big shout out to the crew on the X platform. And we got folks that are checking in on the YouTube channel, and they're just gathering in the room. And folks, you could be a part of that conversation as we see all of our folks checking in from all across the country, some parts of the world, to this great show. Now, this is Wednesday. I got to check in with my sister, who is always doing something special for the culture. She's been politicking over these past few days. I'm so excited, and I'm so happy to see that her event went super well. Looked like it had a lot of fun, a lot of networking, a lot of things happening. She is a licensed lawyer from the state of Florida. She's also a political strategist. And she is the host of the Suzette Speaks show that you can see and check out on YouTube as well. My sister Suzette Speaks joining us every Wednesday.
Suzette. Hey, everybody. Hey, Faraji. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. I'm good. I'm politicking. You're politicking. You had that. It looked like that place was packed, man. I was looking at the photos like, yo.
I'm grateful. What's up, South Florida? Representing from the MIA. Yes. I had an amazing event. I'm doing a kind of, I would say every 6 weeks, a networking event called Politicking. It's a social series bringing together political leaders, business leaders, everyday professionals so that we can get to know and support one another. And this past Thursday, we were up in Fort Lauderdale, over 100 RCPs. It was an amazing night. Check out my Instagram, okay?
Okay.
And I'll be doing it again in February. So I'll bring you those details as we get closer.
And you got an upcoming event where you want to show show your love and salute to the brothers who are making a difference, who are making moves in various industries. I believe you're talking about tech industry. You're talking about politics, right? That's coming up this month.
Entrepreneurship, health and wellness, mental health. We got 10 brothers. They're going to be doing rapid fire. I would call it fireside chats. So it'll be conversation, networking. Awesome. February 27th. Y'all get y'all tickets now. So I'm excited about
it. Come on, y'all. Y'all know about Suzette Speaks down in South Florida? Come on. Yes. There we go. Really there excited. We go.
I am.
That's what's up. Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Suzette, let's talk first as we talk about politics, and let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Washington, D.C. today, where tech CEOs are on the hot seat because of the very great concern that many people are having about the impact and the influence of social media. And these are some of the top voices from Silicon Valley that were called by GOP and Democratic lawmakers in Washington on the grounds of the Capitol. You're talking about the likes of Mark Zuckerberg and others who from Meta, from TikTok, from Twitter, a lot of folks that were brought there. The big moment, Suzette, was when Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Meta that owns Facebook and Instagram, was kind of compelled by Josh Hawley to stand up and to apologize to the families who have lost loved ones due to all types of crazy messages going across social media sites that have forced those loved ones to take their own lives or to be involved in violent encounters because of bullying, because of political polarization, a lot of different messages. And there's a great concern that these messages are infecting children. What's your take on all of this, Suzette?
Yeah, I would agree with you. For those who caught it earlier this morning, this testimony, again, you could add Snapchat in the list that you just mentioned.
That's true.
There's so many of these platforms that have an impact on young people. And we are seeing states, not only the feds now, but states are stepping in to say that they want to regulate social media companies and their impact on children. Now, mind you, think about how addictive they are to us adults. And they have impacted us in so many ways. And we saw, as you said, the testimony, particularly of Mark Zuckerberg. It's been going on for 3+ hours. But I don't know if there is enough will finally to make some moves. We've had these type of hearings before. This was in front of the Judiciary Committee of the Senate. And it's very compelling to hear them talk about how important it is that they feel it is to protect our young people. But I think there needs to finally be legislation. And again, if the feds won't do it, we're seeing a trend where there are a lot of state governments, the legislatures across this country that are looking into how they can better protect our children and hold these companies accountable for what is placed on their platforms.
It's going to be very interesting. We're going to take our first pause. When we come forward, crew, I want to get your take on this. And do you think that we need to hold technology, particularly social media, accountable for the things that we're seeing as it spill over from online to in real life, as they say? I want you to join us in this conversation. Post your comments as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's Facebook page and Roland Martin's YouTube channel. And let's have a conversation about technology and accountability and responsibility right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And we're talking about how tech CEOs are gathered in Washington at the call and the behest of lawmakers to try to find some way to bring some sense of accountability to the social media space that all of us are a part of, right? And so there were a lot of big moments in the hearings of as Mark Zuckerberg, who serves as the founder of Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram. There's been a lot of discussion about what should social media be doing in light of all of the different messaging, especially messaging that is targeted to children, messaging around bullying, messaging around body weight, that has led to a lot of young people committing suicide, a lot of young people feeling the brunt of the of security measures that are not set in place for them. And so there was a lot of questions that being asked. Big moment was Mark Zuckerberg stood up in front of the families who held up the pictures of their loved ones and simply apologized. Now, I have to say, I want to bring my sister Suzette back into the conversation. Suzette, I have to say that I didn't feel like that was his original intent. I felt like Josh Hawley kind of forced him a little bit, put the spotlight on him, right? To say, well, don't you think you need to apologize? Why don't you stand up? And then he even added, don't you think that all of these families, all these quote unquote good people, as he said, need to be compensated? And so I don't know if this was, it felt a little bit like this was some grandstanding. I mean, I do know that social media needs to be held accountable, or there needs to at least need to be some reins on how much influence social media has. But in that particular moment, it felt a little forced to me.
Yeah, there have been many hearings. This is not the first we've seen Congress have these style hearings again with the social media big tech giants and try to say how important it is or admonish them about what they're not doing to protect young people. The name of today's hearing, yet again, is Big Tech and the Online Child Sex Exploitation Crisis. That was the name of today's hearing. And I also wanted to add one more tech CEO, Jason Citron, the CEO of Discord, was among them. Again, Evan Spiegel, CEO of Snap, Shou Chu, CEO of TikTok, Linda Yaccarino, CEO of X, and of course, Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta. And at that moment, I think what has made this hearing quite different from those that have been held in the past is the fact that there were actual families of people and children who have been dramatically affected or even have lost their lives due to these platforms. That could be in the form of buying drugs illicitly on Snapchat messages, or again, being exploited through these traffickers and others who even now the big thing is, and this has happened to people I know, young teens have been co-opted into sending, nudes of themselves and then blackmailed and threatened, and some have even taken their own lives. So this has become like an ongoing and even bigger problem over the last several years. But the internet is nearly 30 yeyears old, Faraji, and in this time, online providers have been protected by something called Section 230. Section 230 allows for any of these providers to escape liability. I would call it escape, or not be held accountable for what people post on their platforms. In other words, they're just the conduit, right? We just are the ground. Whatever they're planting, we didn't plant it. We just provided the soil. So it's been kind of this ongoing protection for so long. So much so that, again, what has happened as a result of these people who have been radicalized and all the ways in which social media on its darker side has impacted our lives, no one at big tech companies to this point has been held accountable. So if Congress does really have the appetite, if it's not just grandstanding, I don't know. I saw Amy Klobuchar, LaFonza, I think I'm saying her name wrong. Butler from California was on that committee today on the judiciary hearing, but it was just different. There were moments of silence, hissing, response, because there were actual families that, because of their platforms, had lost a child. So I think it changed the tone. It kind of gave it a sense of, being much more dire, much more urgent than other hearings where it seems, again, like a very lofty a set of challenges. But now it's like, how long do we let them kind of off the hook? And whether or not, because I think about how much money they put into campaigns and what they do on the lobbying side, will there be an actual change of the law? Will Congress have an appetite to put something together? There were many different types of proposals made to this point. I don't know if I see a coalescing around one particular one, but this has been bipartisan. That's another unique aspect of something like this, where you have both Republicans and Democrats saying out loud, this needs to be addressed. How can we formulate some kind of law and legal, framework to help these families and to protect children? We have things going on in states, in their legislatures as well. Like I said, in Florida, we are always at the top of the list when trying things. They are cultivating a bill right now that will protect kids from 16 and younger from using the internet, from using social media. Excuse me. So when I looked at that, and I was like, are we going beyond parental rights here? Are there First Amendment concerns? I think Governor DeSantis has come out and said, yes, he wants to protect kids just like everybody else, but this type of measure gone too far in saying that they want to see total discontinued use and protection for children 16 and under. It's kind of extreme. There are a lot of people making a lot of hay about it here in the state, but it shows you the appetite that there hasn't been in the past, where there is now more of an outcry, more of an awareness. People are really seeing the deleterious effects of these platforms on not only kids, let's just put the adults and everybody else in it too. So how do we address it? We need to make some kind of changes in the law. And I don't think people want to see, them have a blank check. All these big tech giants have a blank check to just say, we rid our hands of this. We just are the train. The train has already left the station. We didn't decide what goes on the train or what people put up inside of it. We are just allowing it to run. And I think people are getting tired of that excuse, no matter how much Mark Zuckerberg and others try to make it seem as if they're trying to do better, which to some degree they are. To some, they have made some progress, but kids get around some of these protections all the time. So is it enough? And should we be holding these companies accountable is a question. And I don't know if at this point we'll actually see an amendment of some sort. There were several, like I said, that were put forward, but we need one. We need one because they are not
Oh,
doing.
no doubt. Oh, no doubt. Let's go to the crew very quickly before we take our next break. You don't like my music. You checked it and said Adam Smith, the godfather of capitalism, said that the biggest threat was corporate monopolies. And we're seeing that today, Suzette, where these companies that once start off in a very humble space, when you look at the story of Facebook, it started off with Mark Zuckerberg when he was I think he was at Harvard, and he kind of started off creating it in his dorm room and that kind of humble beginnings story. And now it has grown into this behemoth of a tech company that has enraptured, I would say, damn near a great portion of the world, right? Of the whole globe. Like everybody is on Facebook, right? And I saw some wild data that just said that, on an average day globally, 800 million, not 800 million, but yeah, well, I think they said it, almost 1 billion people can be found on Facebook within a day.
Yeah.
And this is globally, folks. This is globally. So to that point, you don't like my music. That is something that's a great concern. The other thing that I just started reading this piece from The Atlantic yesterday, and it was the rise of authoritarianism, and how this writer, Adrienne LaFrance, she says Silicon Valley has its own ascendant political ideology. It's past time we call it what it is, saying essentially that these tech companies now have become the new influencers, even more so than our traditional lawmakers, that their allowance of certain messages, they set the boundaries, they're dictating the agenda, and they are shaping the politics of this country, from everything from no privacy to this idea of being a monopoly and being okay with it. I mean, they're pushing the boundaries in a lot of different ways. So we're starting to see more conversation about that. So I think that is quite interesting. Let me just take one more before we take our next break. Ming Lee, you said stop blaming social media. As we're asking the question, should social media be held accountable? You said stop blaming social media. It's your job as a parent to know what your child is getting into. Back in the day, we couldn't do nothing without our parents knowing about it. But we did do a lot of things without our parents knowing about it.
But there's so much more danger, Ming. That's the only thing. You could go sneak out. You could go ride your bike around the corner and go places you weren't supposed to go. But now it's incoming into a certain degree that I don't think is comparable with like the physical, going behind your parents' back that we did back in, talking about 80s, 90s, and 70s, babies, whatever. But this is different now. These are people that, your kid doesn't have to even be trying to look for trouble. I've had friends of mine talk about their computers and stuff are in their living rooms, and their children still get attacked. They can't go on a phone, or they turn off the Wi-Fi after certain hours, and your child could be in your living room being solicited by a sex trafficker. So when we say it's a parent's responsibility, it is probably one of the most difficult responsibilities right now. Yes, we do want parents to do, their part in making sure their child is monitored, etc. But even when you do that, there is still such a vastness to the internet. And in times where, again, you don't think your child could be attacked, they come in like wolves in sheep's clothing. They come sounding like another little girl, sounding like another little boy. It's just so, it is menacing to think about how far reaching the underbelly of the internet is, even when good people try to regulate their children.
Well,
so I kind of agree with you, but I disagree in a sense because it's so much more vast than being outside after dark.
The only thing I would kind of push back on is we have school districts in this country, Suzette, that rely on YouTube and social media in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to put out the message that these are dangerous spaces for these children, but then you do have teachers, you do have administrators that ask for certain projects, or they go online and talk. If you go on YouTube, you can find, tab time. If you go on YouTube, you can find a Miss Monica.
You can
You know what I'm
Google very
saying?
innocently and then get pornography and get all kinds of stuff that they didn't look
wild
up.
stuff.
Yeah.
That and so it is a catch-22 situation. It's like you're between a rock and a hard place. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's continue the conversation and let's bring some latest updates around that the beating of Tyre Nichols, as new footage has been revealed and shared, and how it just goes to show you that we still have a far way from justice and bringing this case to a close. So stay with us. The Culture is Up continues on the other side here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Checking in with my sister Suzette Speaks, who joins me every Wednesday as we talk about social media and accountability, as some of social media's top leaders and tech CEOs were convened in Washington for a hearing to discuss a number of issues that have arisen on social media that affects children and their families. And there has been, as Suzette, you mentioned earlier, there has been many hearings around these issues. This is not the first, and it certainly won't be the last. But I think that now there's an even greater urgency. A lot of what we have been seeing on social media hasn't just been the concern of children, it's also the concern of the state of politics, right? Talking about where some of the political messaging that has come across. And this comes this comes up because I came across just earlier today in preparing for the show. I saw that there was a story about a man in Pennsylvania who was arrested after allegedly decapitating his father's head and displaying that head. And he displayed his father's head on YouTube The video has since been removed, but this guy named Justin Moore says that his father was a federal employee, refers to him as a traitor, while Justin Moore was voicing right-wing conspiracy theories. So you have this, you talked about this radicalization that
the
is
MAGA
happening.
radicalization, because that's what he was espousing. Let's just make it very specific as to what
MAGA radicalization, correct. And but it's gotten this far, and he's not the only one. This is not the only case. So you have bullying happening. You have body. What is that? The issue where there is this pressure on children and girls more where they are pressured to look a certain way. You have this political polarization, right? And now we're talking about privacy concerns, which has always been an issue. Mark Zuckerberg has been famously saying that he does not believe in privacy. And so you have all of these kind of dynamics at play here, creating a perfect storm. And even with his quote unquote apology, I don't think it's enough. There's no legislation. The Constitution does not cover the internet because there was no sense of internet at that time.
They didn't even know it was going to be around. Yes, right.
So how come we're relying on this antiquated section of 230 that you spoke about earlier with no real discussion about creating some sort of, I don't know, Bill of Rights? I don't know, some sort of digital constitution that Americans and social media companies and tech companies can't adhere to. I don't know why in 2024 we're still having conversations like this, like we can't create new laws or new policies.
Well, it's been done in other places. You have places
exactly
in Europe, India. They have stopped certain things. There's no TikTok allowed in India. So all the things that we say, oh my gosh, why can't there be? There can be if there is political will. Now we've seen today on the judiciary all these grandstanding and some would call it even rants and things like this, but some really heartfelt moments as well as, like I said, families and videos of people whose children took their own lives and all kinds of stuff happened to them. It is frightening to the extent to which this type of technology can be used for evil. And there is appetites in other places, other countries, other continents for regulation. And they have had to change up their algorithms. They have had to delete certain cookies and privacy, take certain privacy measures. Because remember what they're doing with children. What makes social media so successful is the advertisers. And what the advertisers want? Advertisers want your data, what you search, what you look up, how many times a day you touch your phone, what sites do you frequent. And through that browsing history, they create a profile of you and sell you more stuff and direct people and products towards you that you are more likely to read about and to ultimately buy. So children are innocent in this whole marketing process. They are just using their, Instagram or their TikTok in ways that is supposed to be, entertaining and hopefully connecting them. And then what is also really unique about this generation, Faraji, due to the pandemic, many of them only found, their socialization through their online platforms for like 3-4 years. That's all they had. And that's the only way they were able to connect with their peers. Fast forward to now, it's such a big part of their lives, our lives, when it comes to, like you said, bullying and self-image and ways in which, again, we had to ride the school bus or walk to school and get, bullied at the school. This is like a 24/7 access to your child that, again, beyond their own choosing, right? Not of their will. They are in front of their peers and their peers are in front of them. Strangers who don't mean them well are in front of them or have access to them. So it is a far different and vast animal, so to speak, when it comes to how much they have power. And I think in that, techno-authoritarian way, which you're just referring to in that article, they do have way more power because they know really what people think. They know what people really look up and what they really watch and how much time they really spend on the internet. It's important data that is not protected to the extent that it should be, because it's when you see those little kind of warnings, hey, we collect data, we may sell it to third parties. Even when you download an app, I look at it, I'm like, why does this app need my location, my contacts, my phone number? Well, why does this app need that when I'm learning, vocabulary in Spanish? Like it's kind of crazy to the extent to which these apps not only are just kind of collecting, data mining, utilizing what they can learn about you to sell more products to you and your circle. It is a kind of it is a gargantuan problem. I can't express how much autonomy we think we have when it's actually social media companies that are orchestrating our timelines.
But here's the thing, though.
See what you see. It's not by accident that, I thought about these jeans and look, the jeans are on my timeline. How many times has that happened to you? Your timeline, Faraji, and that's what it also has the power to do. The division, the political power. Your timeline and my timeline are two different timelines. That kid who just committed that heinous act on his own father, radicalized by what? Being online, lack of real life social interaction, and finding a home with people that are also feeling disenfranchised and disempowered, and then taking it to this ultimate, very gruesome level of using YouTube to broadcast such a heinous act against one's father. This is, again, radicalization. You don't even have to leave your house to be radicalized. It can come to you just based on what you Google. They give you more of what you're searching, right? And not balance. Like I said, the news feed of a guy sitting in the middle of Iowa and a guy sitting in the middle of New Hampshire and a guy sitting in the middle of Florida are all different news feeds, right? They're tailoring it to you. So we don't even have the same influx of information, and that can hurt us in the larger scheme of things when it comes to politics, because we don't have a baseline agreement of what the general facts are, where we get our news from. We don't give equal weight to what is respectable, what is a respectable news outlet, because what they're reading, what we're reading, what they're feeding us is quite a contrast to the other fellow American down the street. So it can be very dangerous. They do have more power, some would argue, than even our politicians at this stage. If our politicians don't choose to somehow regulate them, they're going to continue to grow in power.
And I don't disagree with you. The only pushback is this relationship and I'm saying the relationship between us as consumers of media, and I'm talking about us, not just me and you. I'm talking about all of us. We're consumers, right? We are the users of this platform, of these spaces, right? But we have convinced ourselves that we need these spaces just as much as these spaces has convinced us that they need to be in our lives, right? So this is a two-way street, right? This is a relationship, our relationship with technology. Let me just tell y'all,
y'all that they're designed to be addictive.
Oh, no doubt.
Dopamine receptors that drugs light up in our head. The green little button of like, red little heart, like, it lights up.
Because these are social scientists behind the closed doors. I mean, when you're talking about, look, let's look at the tech industry. They're called programmers.
Right.
Are they just, and so if you're talking about programmers, this is not to shed light or to throw shade on people who do this work, but you have to understand this is social science at its best. These are social scientists who understand psychology, sociology, who understand chemistry, because they know that when that little ding or that little notification comes up, your mind is already conditioned.
Imagine a 7-year-old brain.
So that's what I'm saying. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. As a people or as a country, we have to ask ourselves some very important questions. We have to, because just like any relationship, if you see your relationship with anybody or anything is getting into a dangerous place, then it's time for you to take a moment to step back and to reflect and to evaluate, okay, how can I redefine this relationship? We can't run away from technology. No. And we can't, and if we're trying to teach our children in 2024 that they should be afraid to get onto the computer, right? When industries that they are going to school for are rooted in technology, when they have to grow up into spaces, especially as creators, whether you're a content creator or whatever, if you're a filmmaker, you're going to have to use this stuff. So instead of us imposing our fear on the next generation, we're going to have to figure out as adults first, how can we have a healthy relationship with technology? Technology isn't bad. It has improved our lives, but our usage of it has to be changed. And I think that's the problem. That's the thing. We as adults, we are so into technology and being on a phone. Like I don't know about y'all. I don't even want to look at the phone after a certain period of time.
Listen, some of us are compelled, Faraji. We trying to sleep in the phone in our face. And
the phone. Hey,
not telling on myself. I got my niece tell me. She'd be like, "Auntie, no phone." I'd be like, "Oh, okay, right." I'm playing with you, right?
You at the dinner table? You know what I'm saying? You wake up in the morning.
I agree with you. The back to basics. I've seen family gatherings where everybody put the phone in a basket, set it on the side, and everybody eats and talks to one another. I agree that
I get it.
Some of
we
that.
Have to figure out something different.
We also have to write our lawmakers, call our lawmakers, and make them also put new legislation on the table that's going to affect how these companies do business. Because right now they're writing the rules, and there's also that interest that politicians have where they would want these companies favorable to one side or another. Think about that as well. So even how they're writing the laws and how it would influence companies, they're thinking about how those companies that have all that power, the Facebook ads, the this ads, all of those things, what they allow through to the viewer, they're also kind of weighing that while they're writing this legislation as to how it would affect their political parties or issues, right? So we gotta hold them accountable. They have to do something more so than have these wonderful committee hearings, which we need. But now let's get to the drawing board and let's actually write some legislation.
I feel like having these hearings, a part of it is a little bit of political theater, right? I think the monkey is the genie is out of the bottle in this case, right? Because now Facebook doesn't have to put up any notifications. We already could check our Instagram and our Facebook and our X feeds and all of those spaces. We automatically are now conditioned to do that on our own. There doesn't have to be a notification. How many times do you pick up the phone?
When you wake up, you look at it. And look, sometimes what scares me is
we go to the bathroom. We make
5 years ago, you were doing this. How come you're reminding me what I was doing 5 years ago, Facebook? You have my life. You literally have access to all my pictures.
But wait, hold on, Suzette. How, if we know this, and I think this is the challenge for us as the culture. If we know that these spaces have our lives, then why do we share so much of our lives? We know this.
If it's
we're like quote unquote feeding the beast.
In a
right?
way.
Because people tell me for many years, people say, man, you gotta be on. And look, this is what adults have told me. If you want to be successful in 2024 or 2023 in terms of business or whatever profession you want to be successful, you gotta be online. You gotta be on
TikTok. You gotta be. I haven't even done Threads. I post on Threads and I close it. I'm tired. I cannot do any more platforms.
Now I'm trolling people. I'm just trolling. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. If I see a crazy ass post, I'm trolling. I'm just trolling because I'm trolling just because I'm tired of. Because here's what I'm tired of, and this speaks to a couple of segments. Like I want us to have a conversation about the political space. Because they're finding that this next generation, I'm talking about young Black people, are not getting their news. And we talked about this, but this was updated. NBC News put out this report saying that young Black people are getting their news from people online, influencers, radio show hosts, people that do the work that I do, the work that you do, Suzette.
Some of these people are not qualified to be doing what they're doing. But I mean, who am I to say? I hope they're researching. I hope they're fact checking. I hope they're cross checking 2 and 3 sources. But we don't know.
Nobody's cross checking. Let me tell you something. No. Nobody's cross checking. If you got an AI voice, right? And we didn't even talk about deep fakes and AI and all of the potential risk of creating an alternate reality with somebody's image and their sound-alike voice. George Carlin, one of the late great comedy legends, his family is trying to file a lawsuit against 2 guys that created a 60-minute comedy special of George Carlin giving 60 minutes worth of jokes in 2024.
They made
I went online and heard, and And it sounds just like George Carlin.
It does. I think, and again, the Florida legislature is taking up a possible bill. I don't think it's in both chambers yet, but one side is looking at possibly AI lawsuits and allowing for, if someone makes a deep fake of you, for you to be able to sue. And again, this is proposed. This is not law. This is in committee, proposing that you should be able to sue the person, given that you can find them, who created the deep fake of you. Right. So there's, again, we're trying to get ahead of some of this stuff because we know what's coming. But at the same time, I don't know how quickly or if the political systems that we have in place are moving quickly enough to get in front of what will be, a continued challenge to keep their users safe, particularly the children who are using them safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me just take a couple, and I know we got to take a quick pause, but folks have been checking in. I want to honor the crew that's been saying things. Brian Christian, you say, here's the thing for Raji. Deep thinking isn't a quick process. So for a country to do this, it will take years just to come up with a reasonable law.
We've been waiting. The internet been around 28 years. They got to come up with something. But I hear what you're saying. But we can do it incrementally, too. I agree with what you're saying.
Real Brooklyn, you said everything in moderation, people, everything in moderation. Apply common sense to what we do and do what's right for your kids. Everything else will fall into place. You only hope, and I agree with you on that, big brother, Real Brooklyn, but you only hope that things will fall into place because we're walking a very fine line between not trying to scare the children, impose our fear on the children, and at the same time, they're walking into a very different world where technology reigns supreme in every single industry. So what do you tell your children?
The reality is that there are predators out there that are exploiting this.
There are predators.
There are kids that are down here that got in a van because of somebody they met online, promising them modeling, promising them all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I mean, we don't want to scare them, but there is that reality that there are folks that want to exploit children and now have an easier means because they don't have to leave their house. They can inbox your child on Instagram. They can DM your child on Facebook. It's really scary, but we got to take a break for Raji. Maddie gonna kill him.
Take a break. When we come forward, let's talk a little bit about this latest development in the case of the beating of Tyre Nichols. New footage has been released, and it is even more damning than what we have been exposed to already. We'll talk a little bit about this. Plus, I want to get in conversation with Suzette. I had to hold this one over for my sister today because it looks like in preparation for the February 3rd primary election happening this Saturday in South Carolina, Representative James Clyburn has been trying to do his part to galvanize the next generation of young Black leaders from HBCUs and other places in South Carolina. But guess what? These young leaders are saying, we're not listening to the message you're putting out there. And it's opened up the conversation of how old school politics versus the next generation may become a major hurdle for a Biden victory. Stay with us. That conversation is up next as well, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, We're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause to long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Raji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we're streaming live on a number of various platforms. And we thank you for tuning in to each one of them. First and foremost, our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure y'all do your due diligence to check us out on all of our shows on blackstarnetwork.com. Also, download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network and continue to support us financially as we are making waves in this digital space. So your support makes a world of difference right here to us here on Black Star Network. We're also streaming live on Amazon News on your Fire TV, on Amazon Prime Video. You can check us out there. Just check us out on the Prime Video app under Live TV The News. So find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV The News. We're also on the Freevee Network, where you can find us on now under News and Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV The News and Opinion. Now, we're on our Roland Martin social media spaces. We're on Roland Martin's Facebook page, Roland Martin's YouTube channel, and we're on the X platform. So make sure if you're a part of the Great Culture crew, we thank y'all so much for joining us in the conversation. And right now in the chat, we have a lot of people sharing their thoughts as we've had a very spirited conversation. Great conversation and informative discussion about what's happening in Washington and holding social media giants accountable for everything from body shaming. And big shout out to my sister Karen for telling me that, body shaming, bullying, and so much more. And the conversation will continue, folks. This, of course, is an ongoing discussion about reigning in that level of power and influence on social media platforms and other spaces. So that make sure that you're having those conversations with your family members, with your friends, and more importantly, with the children and young people in your lives, so that way we can be a little bit more informed. Again, my take is that, yes, there are some crazy things happening, but like my brother Real Brooklyn said in the chat, there are some other great things that are happening, because we would not have known about things that are happening with our people in other parts of this country, around the world, if it wasn't for social media. So, you know, it's an ongoing struggle to try to figure out what is what. Now, I'm joined today, of course, by my sister, Suzette Speaks, host of the Suzette Speaks Show. She's also a licensed attorney from the state of Florida, and she joins us here on Wednesdays, a great political strategist as well. But Suzette, I wanted to talk a little bit about, it was Tyre Nichols' case that became, of course, because of social media, we really were able to see the latest situation, you know, to really see this situation of Tyre Nichols, who was brutally beaten by, there were 6 cops present, 5 black men, 1 white man, but it was 5 black men who were responsible for beating and killing our brother. And we saw some of that video when it happened. And as a result of that, that has led to them being, you know, kicked off the force, prosecuted. They're looking at serving some time in prison. Well, now it looks like this particular case is not quite over, as there has been new recordings that has been released as of yesterday additional hours of additional video shows that what officers did and said after the fatal beating of Tyre Nichols. This is they have released about 21 hours of newly released video and audio revealing more than what first responders, including those 5 fired police officers charged in his death, did. And we're not going to be able to show you. I mean, some of this stuff is just so graphic, folks. So we can't show it to you out of respect for the family and for you. But there, with these new recordings that have come out, not only just the recording of the beating, but also the recordings of the conversation that some of these officers had when they visited his parents' home to tell them what has been going on. And I'm wondering, Suzette, in the big scheme of things, whether it's from the legal space or even just from the social justice space, what do we do with this new information, especially since a lot of these officers are already, facing charges? What does this do in the big scheme of things?
It allows us to get the full picture of what exactly happened to Tyre Nichols that fateful night. As you said, this happened a year ago, January 7th, and we are now just able to hear for ourselves, see for ourselves what exactly transpired during that traffic stop. If you remember this case, you all remember that this young man was driving. We don't see in these newly released tapes what again led up to this, according to police, according to their testimony and statements, he was speeding, but we don't see any of that on this newly released video. There are about 43 separate pieces of video, as Raji pointed out, several hours now that have been released. According to prosecutors, they didn't want to release it earlier because they don't want their case compromised. But in the spirit of transparency, it's important, although very traumatizing to the family, the community as a whole, that we see the truth and we're able to piece the puzzle together instead of just going by what police and authorities have told us. Now we can hear directly. So this body of footage comes from the dash cams, the body worn cams, the street cameras. A fuller picture now can be painted as to what happened. And what is scary is that it is showing, again, a lot of damning information against the Memphis Police Department. We see, again, and hear directly, based on the body worn cam, what several of the officers were saying. There are officers that are caught on these tapes that say something about this. I remember the name is Scorpion Unit, and how, these are adrenaline junkies, and how, they're trying to one up one another. That can be heard on one of the tapes. You also hear an officer who approaches Tyre Nichols' home. Remember, he was about 2 blocks from his house when all this came about. And officers later in the evening going up to his mom, Rovan, and dad, Rodney, and trying to almost insinuate, not almost.
Yeah.
Was he high? Does he drink? Was he on any drugs? I couldn't presume, just because of how he fought back, he was on something. And all of this, banter that is just so, hindsight being 2020, you just wonder how often this occurs. And you hear a mother that's like, no, that's not my child. That would never be my child. Who are you talking about? This can't be Tyre. And so much more. Again, I don't advise necessarily that we play it here or that you necessarily watch it because it's so traumatizing, but more of that beating video is also available. You also see that the paramedics show up and don't render aid for several minutes. That's also very apparent from what these new clips show. You also, hear again just what people are saying, what the cops are saying, what the officers are saying, back and forth to each other. He really fought it. We really, I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to get the language right, but they're giving themselves fist bumps and calling him high as a kite. And they really put him down. And there's just so many more details now available that I think should have been available probably a little earlier. But again, prosecutors are saying this is the right time for this. But it's, again, re-injuring to the family, painful again for a city, and but necessary. This is one of those necessary moments where, although, again, re-traumatizing, it's important that we see the facts and see for ourselves and listen to what the police and others who were on that scene were saying that night.
It's so traumatizing. It's so and when to read the account of them talking to the parents and, like you mentioned, insinuating whether he was on drugs or something beyond just, smoking marijuana. It's so traumatizing. There's also the body cam footage that pick up the fact that they both, as these officers walked away from that interaction with his parents, that they felt like his parents wasn't completely buying this story, that he was high.
At the time, he was unconscious and darn near his death. And remember, he died 3 days later.
Right. And they were saying, I hope he pulls through. So that way their story can hold up and it doesn't look like they beat this man into unconsciousness, which led to his death. I mean, it's just so horrific. And the sad part about this is it's 5 black men. It's 5 black. This is the case that I always keep in my mind. It's like, it's 5 black men doing this to another black man. And it's sad. I have no F's. I'm going to just say it like this. No F's to give for these jokers. Not one. Don't get up on the stand crying and I didn't know better. I don't give a flying F.
And imagine how many other people.
There it is. Look at it.
That they have impacted in this
I don't care what happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
That badge that
don't talk blackness to me. Mm-hmm. She said, don't talk all that pro-blackness. These are 5 brothers. They did not give a damn about that man. That man was far from a threat. He was far from a threat. Far from a threat. Mm. So whatever happens to him is whatever happens to him. But if God keeps them alive for many years, may they never get a day of sleep and peace in their life. That's just it for me. That is unconscionable that they have gone that far. They beat this man. They brutalize this man. They lie on this man. Then you're going to go up in their parents' face and try to get them to come up with a story. Nah, bro. No, sir. No, sir. Blackness be damned. I don't care what the color of your skin is. You wrong, you wrong. And they were wrong like 2 left feet. So why should we care? Why should we care? I wouldn't even touch it. If I was a black attorney, Suzette, I wouldn't even touch the case. I'd be like, man, get the hell out of my face with that BS. Talking about, can you defend me, please? Please. I wouldn't dare. And how do you expect us to get to a better place if now we got to fight black cops? We already know what may come with white police officers, but now we got to fight black cops too? Mm. So more footage. I wouldn't, to your point, I would not advise us unless, I don't need to see the footage. I don't need to listen to the audio. I just want that family to the family of Tyre Nichols to find peace and justice. I want this case to be closed. I want that brother legacy to be honored and let him not die in vain by putting some more, whether it's policy or training, whatever needs to be done to ensure that another black man or another man in general doesn't have to die for this madness. And they have to go through this again. This is such a sad story. It's such a sad story.
It is.
And I hope the city of Memphis really understand, like, Memphis is a sacred place in our hearts in terms of the civil rights movement and the history of our people. I hope that black and political leaders down in Memphis really understand that y'all got to make sure that this does not continue to happen. And clean house if necessary. I don't care who else get fired from the police department. Clean house. But our people don't deserve that, man. Not at the hands of some crazy ass black people. We don't deserve that at all. Mm. So look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about how the old school way of doing politics versus the next generation may set up a clash for a Biden victory. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Got my sister, Suzette Speaks. Suzette, I just want to, we talked about Tyre Nichols. I'm going to just go, we talked about this. I saw something that one of our crew members said. It's not going to be a long chat, but I think that this is a perfect example as to why we need to have conversations. Frankie, you pointed out, you said, Faraji, stop being so emotional. Our people in the hood go through this all the time. Frankie, with all due respect, if we don't get emotional when we see injustice, especially when our people are killed, whether it's by black hands or white hands, wherever they may be, if we don't get emotional, then when do we? I think the conversation about us not being emotional, not getting angry, is part of the problem. Because if you don't have that anger in you, you're not going to move to action. It's not going to compel you to change anything. So don't tell us not to get emotional when you see a man, a brother, your brother getting brutally beaten down. And if it happens all the time, does it make it right? Does it make it seem as if, oh, well, if it happens all the time, we shouldn't be. We should be emotional every time it happens. So please don't tell me not to get emotional about a circumstance like this. This is righteous anger. Righteous anger. There's a difference. Yes, we can be angry and emotional, of course, because a life was lost unnecessarily. But don't try to just, let's just not be emotional. Let's not cross the, but let's just keep everything. I am so sick and tired of people not wanting to honor a natural emotion to injustice. Anger is good. Anger is good. Anger brings about change if it's channeled in the right way. And we're having a conversation, right? We're having a discussion. If we as Black people are always told, hey, don't get emotional, just calm down, calm down. No. How many years we've been doing that? Trying to hold in that anger, keeping that toxic energy inside of us. For what? For whose benefit?
Some things are going to make us mad, and it's okay to be upset.
And it's okay.
And I think that doesn't negate us trying to, come up with productive solutions. I think what moves people to productive solutions are like the same things that we saw. No one's going to tell those families who sat in the hearings on the social media giants today to not be angry that their children.
Come on.
There are all kinds of things that we can be mad at in this beautiful country of ours that are not quite right. And then that hopefully spurs us to action. But yeah, I don't think a person expressing themselves in a way that shows their, true feelings towards a subject matter should be something that we shun or sometimes, shame them for. I don't think that's good. I think we also move in many ways to a more productive plane once people are able to express themselves freely and honestly. And then we also, just like we did here, can review facts as to what actually did occur and therefore what should happen when it comes to seeking justice for this family. So I don't know if you don't have to have it. It's not mutually exclusive.
No, it's not. It's not. And I like the way you said it. I like the way you said it, Suzette. That's what make you the lawyer.
I hear he want to say get to work, but we are getting to work.
And it's part of, you cannot say that. It's like saying when you saw the Rodney King, any major moment, when you saw the beating of Rodney King, and when you see any of these things happening, how can you resist emotions, man? Like, we're honoring the energy that's within us, right? And we're honoring the ancestors that came before us, because nobody wants to sit around being damn calm all the time.
Yeah,
I'm tired of Black folks being, we got to be calm. We got to be calm. Why we always got to be calm? Why is there this fear that when Black men and women get upset, we're going to tear stuff up? That's not our nature. That's not how we move in this country. We don't go outside and just start tearing stuff up. Yeah. We get angry. We get through that moment. We process it. And then we try to figure out how to make sure that that moment doesn't repeat itself. That's how we do. That is very natural. Please don't tell me not to get emotional about seeing a Black man getting beat down by other Black men on tape. And then we don't talk, please spare me, miss me, bro. Miss me with that BS. I'm going to get emotional. As much as we have more Black men getting killed, Black women getting killed, I'm going to get angry. But guess what? What we're doing, as Suzette said, we're having conversations, we're advocating, we're in the spaces to try to do our best to change the quality of life and the reality of Black people in this country. But damn right, I'm upset. And I hope all of y'all should get upset. Because if we don't get upset and we sit back here calm, then we look like a bunch of punks. We don't look like we care.
Yeah. Point well taken. Point well taken.
All right. Let's take another quick pause. When we come back, let's have a conversation about politics. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, We're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Raji Muhammad, joined by my sister and contributor, Suzette Speaks, host of the Suzette Speaks show that airs on YouTube, as well as a licensed attorney out of the state of Florida, and she's a political strategist. As we wanted to talk to her, and Suzette, I held this piece because I said, I need to talk to my sister Suzette. Because February 3rd, this Saturday, is the primary election. This is the first primary for the Democrats down in South Carolina. So everybody's eyes are going to be on South Carolina this Saturday. We know that South Carolina was the turning point for the Biden campaign back in 2020. And that was the kickoff for his campaign to take that next chapter, garnering black votes as a result of the work of Representative James Clyburn, and essentially putting President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris into the White House.
Not to kick off the resuscitation of the Biden.
Boom, there you go. I like that word.
He was on life support before Jim Clyburn helped save him through getting South Carolina voters.
Resuscitation. I love it. I love it. All right, so look, now we're 4 years later. It's already a new political landscape that the state of South Carolina is in. You still have a very highly dense population of black people in the state. Of course, they know that over these past couple of months, the Democrats had arranged for this particular contest to be the first contest to kind of get things started off on the right foot.
Instead of Iowa and New Hampshire.
Instead of Iowa and New Hampshire. Now, the challenge is for James Clyburn, the Representative James Clyburn, and other surrogates of the president to try to win over black folks who are now looking at Biden, President Biden, a little bit with the side eye, trying to figure out, what are we going to get in this go with you? This is more prevalent among the next generation, more so than I think with a lot of people. Let me just share with you what NBC News had to say as we're looking at where young people stand on this situation. Let's go to quote number 2, please, where NBC News shows In a polling in 2023 found that black voters overall favored Biden over Trump by 73% to 17%. But when it comes to voters under the age of 34, Suzette, the margin shrank among that slice of the black electorate. Biden's support fell to 60%. Trump's rose to 28%. In 2020, Biden won 87% of black voters, including 89% of black voters under 29 and 78% of those 30 to 44. Now, Representative James Clyburn has been reaching out to try to close this gap. He's been talking to some young leaders from HBCUs down in Florida, in South Carolina, excuse me.
Mhm.
There are two HBCUs down in South Carolina, and I think we should keep this in mind. These are HBCUs' next generation leaders that are hesitant about putting their full support behind President Biden. The two South HBCUs, South Carolina State and Claflin University. In a conversation and meeting that these HBCUs had, and how they talked about their experience having a conversation with President Biden while he was vice president, they did not feel like this guy, this president, was truly listening to what they had to say. And so this has become a real challenge for Representative James Clyburn to try to get this over. How much of this is going to be a problem do you see coming up in this February 3rd primary? Is this a real big problem? Is this a small problem? Where do you see this at, Suzette?
Well, I think there are a lot of news headlines like this story here in the Griot that capture our attention when we see these headlines that are entitled, Biden losing support among blacks, et cetera, and how dire the waters seem for him as he kind of sails on into his first primary. When I look at the numbers, and again, it is going to be very distinct because South Carolina has a high population, high concentration of black folks. That's why black people helped him win and again, gave him back life in his campaign, survived thanks to the black folks in South Carolina that in 2020 said yes to President Biden. I think one thing I see in this article that is pointed out is how Representative Clyburn has been kind of making the choice very clear to young people and asking them, how come you think presumed nominee, not yet the nominee, former President Trump, has a better record in terms of how he's impacted the economy, what he was doing for women or lack thereof, or for black folks or lack thereof. Like, what in his record has you think that he's superior to President Biden? I think, and I've said it here before, there is a communication deficit among Democrats in terms of describing to people what President Biden has done, particularly when it comes to African American people. When I look at his appointment, the first African American vice president, when I look at the first woman vice president, when I look at the first African American woman Supreme Court justice, I don't want just those kind of, what can I say, optics. I'm looking also at the record in terms of what he's done when it comes to student loan forgiveness. Of course, we talked about it here when it comes to across the board cancellation. He wasn't able to do it thanks to the Supreme Court. But when we talk about over, I think it's I don't want to say the wrong number, billions in student loan. When we talk about low unemployment rates, when we talk about recovery in a pandemic, people don't remember, or it's easy to forget, I guess, what it was like when we were looking straight into the eyes of this pandemic and what it was doing or possibly could have done to our economy at the time, and how people were sustained by a lot of the policies. When we talk about things like the infrastructure bill or helping veterans or doing other things that and decreasing the amount of costs for diabetes drugs. Like, I don't want to sound like it is a advocacy, but I'm just looking at a record and trying to objectively compare that to someone whose record to me shines brightest on January 6th. So when you're asking those voters who are contemplating what's going on. I mean, I have just this Saturday volunteered to, register people to vote and get people re-enrolled here in Florida and vote by mail. I had a 20-minute exchange with a Black brother here in Miami. I would guess he's probably late 30s, early 40s. We went back and forth again on just issues where I think there again is a messaging deficit and possibly an understanding of, Trump gave us money, Biden has it. When I broke down to him how the federal government provides money for programs across the board to all 50 states, but the governor of the state does not have to accept it. Even right now in the Florida legislature, there has been a preliminary budget that's been proposed. Ron DeSantis has said he's planning to cut it by $5 billion. When we look at the numbers, that billion comes from a lot of the federal programs that set aside money to help people with affordable housing, to help people on free and reduced lunches. Like I told you, or actually I was on rolling when I mentioned the programs that many of our Republican-led states have declined when it comes to summer lunch programs, monies that kids who were on free and reduced lunch programs, they had summer checks, if you will, for $40 per child per month, 3 months, that could have gone to these households that came from the federal budget, but governors in the more conservative states that are run by Republicans rejected that money. That has happened from things from high-speed rail in Florida. Our high-speed rail now from Miami to Orlando is not cheap, but it could have been much cheaper had the governor at that time, Rick Scott, accepted federal monies from Obama to build those things. When you look at the track record of what this administration has done versus the Trump administration, I think it's quite clear what benefits one or another. Now, if they're mad that there's a choice only between these two, I can very much empathize with them. But no matter how you poll, when you poll President Biden and you poll anyone else, Biden outshines them on the Democratic side. And now we're looking at Nikki Haley really fighting for her life to stay in this race to Super Tuesday. So whether there's this kind of discontent and an ill feeling because we're looking at two nearly 80-year-old candidates who don't seem to have the vigor and the just the type of temperament especially on the Republican side that we would want, I can understand the frustration with those things. But I do think Jim Clyburn, even if you look at the Griot article, makes a great choice outline between what are you giving up to go with this other person, and why would you go with another person after their record of, again, not only misogyny, having taken away women's rights to choose, looking at how his party feels about race and whether you're included in that MAGA base and what their vision is. It is very, and again, not everybody in the Republican Party thinks the same, but looking at where the center of his party is now landed as far as the key issues and people like from the old days, when you look at the Republicans of like the Condoleezza Rice times and the Colin Powell times, like this is a different breed. When you're looking at the Tim Scott right there, talking about I love you, sir, like you got to really think about who are you saying that you support and why. So when it comes down to key issues, I don't know if, again, the window dressing on President Biden needs to be improved. The communication piece as to what his administration has done for the economy. We have had more jobs come back to America, stay in America. We have the least amount of unemployed people right now. Again, inflation is coming down, even though we all feel it. What it could have been as a result of the pandemic, it is so many moving parts that we're not necessarily hearing clearly. And I was on a strategy call this week about this and how we can clearly message to our younger folks why this is a choice, not against somebody. Now, there is a lot to be very worried about, but for someone. So I do think Representative Clyburn is doing his best to try to make that choice very clear. Whether or not there are some that might not feel it, I get that. But there is a large majority that do see what President Biden has been doing for the nation as a whole and for Black folks in particular. But I think there's the messaging side of it that he has to continue to work on. He cannot take it for granted. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out Saturday in South Carolina. But there are folks, there are pockets of folks. It's not a majority. There are pockets of folks that feel this way, and they deserve to be addressed. I do think there has to be, and I just saw, and I know we have to take a break. There has just been the Biden campaign hired, and I didn't look up her stats of who she is, but a head of, Black media outreach was just
Jasmine
hired.
Harris. Yep.
Yes. And
Jasmine Harris. Yep.
They need to get their acts together to understand who is not hearing the message and how you reach them beyond, some of the bigger platforms that we have in hip hop culture and in our morning show culture and whatnot. There are other places that you must go and ways in which you must express how your administration has been quite potent. It's passed more major legislation than we've seen in like the last 30 years. And a lot of things, but people don't understand it or maybe don't feel it, if you will. And that's going to be an issue for sure.
That's going to be a big issue. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, I'm going to get more thoughts from Suzette. Folks, I want to get from you, crew, hear from you as to what you think about this whole dynamic of old school politics versus the new generation. Post your comments as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube channel and Roland Martin's Facebook page. Let's continue the discussion. On the other side, I'll share with you what one former Biden administration had to say about this issue. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Checking in with my sister Suzette Speaks as we talk about the challenges in this upcoming primary election down in South Carolina, where Representative James Clyburn is at odds with the next generation of black leaders, HBCU leaders, student leaders, who are not completely sold on the idea of putting President Biden back into office. And I've been checking in with my sister Suzette Speaks, who laid it out, talking and taking on a kind of the similar sentiment of the of Representative Clyburn, saying, look at his record. And I think a lot of this, Suzette, is because people don't know the full context of President Biden's record. I mean, look, you don't have to go far to realize that President Trump and where he stands on things and how he approaches things is problematic for Black America, right? So I don't
on aesthetics, or what are they voting on then? I don't understand.
So if these young people don't feel like the president is whether it's talking about the Gaza situation, if the president hasn't fully been able to move forward on the police misconduct situation, yes, the president, and we can go back and forth. And
my question would then be: you think Trump will?
No, I don't think so.
Not you.
I don't think so. But no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But see, here's the thing. The concern that I have is, are we setting ourselves up where we may be at odds with the next generation of young leaders, especially coming from HBCUs? So and here's why I'm only asking this, and you saying that you don't think so, so I respect that. It's not
necessarily representative. These students here with this specific philosophy or political persuasions, that's okay, and I think they're valid in their way of looking at what's going on, but I don't know that, again, it is indicative across the board. The numbers are.
I don't think so. Yeah, it's interesting though. It's interesting. Here's what I want to share. This came from that NBC, same NBC article that we've been referencing, and Susan, and Lise, can we put up the quote? I think this quote number 2 from the former Biden administration, and I'm trying to pull this quote up here on my there we go. It's quote number 3. Let's put up quote number 3. This is coming from NBC. And according to a former Biden administration official, they say, quote, when it comes to politics, young voters aren't taking cues from longstanding institutions and party leaders, according to this former official, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss, frankly, some of the president's electoral vulnerabilities. They're instead looking to people, quote, in the culture, social media influencers, grassroots leaders, and urban radio folks. Black voters are, quote, are not going to be a rubber stamp for the party. This is, I think, the sentiment of a lot of young black voters, which is why, and I think Brian, my guy, Brian Christian, you brought this up, which is why Nikki Haley being on the Breakfast Club earlier today with Charlamagne and Envy, why that's a big deal. Why Charlamagne is in the place that he's being positioned, right? Like why his words carry weight. Because we're seeing that these next generation young leaders aren't looking at these cues from the records and the institutions and the traditional spaces that will help to influence and inform voters on where they stand, right? They're looking at people, influencers and grassroots organizers and people who may or may not have a full understanding of the context of this or the stakes of this situation, right? And so if that's the case, and you have these next generation young leaders coming from HBCUs as well as PWIs, and they're coming to some consensus or they're having some critical thinking conversations around these issues, are we going to find ourselves butting heads? Because they are thinking outside of what we want them to think, and we feel like they don't understand how high the stakes really are.
I don't think so. I think the statement that the author there put forward is that the gist of that is that young people are getting their influence from a lot of different places. I don't think that's specific to just Black young people. I do think across the board in the United States, that's why when we go back to the conversation we just had about social media giants, why they need to be regulated and how much influence they have on our lives and our thinking and our politics is because they aren't looking at more traditional means of getting their information, of thought leadership. I agree with that. And so we have to go out and find them. And I do agree. To the point you were making before when it comes to how much we've benefited from, and I do think Black folks have benefited from, thank God for the internet. Like there are so many parts of it that have become a great equalizer for us and Americans as a whole. I do think, just like any other industry, not just because the point was in my mind from before, when we had any type of technological advancement, whether it came from the industrial age, that's why it's so important to know history. When it came to, the barons of the late 1800s, early 1900s that we now revere, the Carnegies and the Fords and these folks, there were people that moved inside these industries before government regulation could catch up to them. And I'm going to get to your point when it comes to young people, but the behavior of business is not always in the best interest of that consumer, or in this case, that viewer. The behaviors of businesses oftentimes don't have that social contract aspect and are looking at solely the power, control, and the bottom line. So although an industry like the tech giants can be so beneficial when used for good and for commerce and other ways in which they've impacted our lives in such a wonderful way, there's no real incentive for them to regulate, like Twitter and other or X and other platforms, the negative, because again, all of it feeds into more eyeballs, more attention, and therefore, more places that their advertisers can come and know that there are people that are watching, and therefore they can sell the advertising space. So just because I think, they offer such of an upside doesn't mean that there have not always been industries when it comes to child labor and people that were dying.
Right.
We had like the EPA and OSHA. People died at their jobs. Kids were on skyscrapers in what we looked up to in New York, like walking with water and food to people who, didn't have any safety or anything like that. We think about those things because they were like physical, but this has the same impact. Whether we're seeing it or not in our minds, it has the same impact. To get to the point when it comes to young people and influencers, I was listening to, and shout out to Karen Hunter, her program a couple days ago about this phenomenon when it comes to reaching Black folks and how to reach this younger generation. And she and another guest, I forget his name, were talking about this idea that, and I want to kind of put the point out there more as a question than maybe finishing off with like, here's how we get to young people, because I think what again has been said is true. And they are not necessarily looking to a Jim Clyburn the way you and I might know that this person has been at this for 40 years or whatever it is, and how much he has knowledge of how this works from the inside. I do think we have to be careful. And I would agree, and I would ask people to listen to the Karen Hunter podcast that talks about the gatekeeping of Black voters through the platforms of influencers and how much responsibility they have. And should that be, or those be the only spaces that we entrust to reaching Black voters? And I think it's important that there are visits to the Breakfast Club and others. But it's kind of scary, again, when we look comparatively when it comes to white folks and how many different places they have to offer opinions that reflect, a wide variety of opinions. We have to be very careful that, again, like you said, anybody with a microphone that can come forward and call them an influencer are now the gatekeepers of Black politics. It's scary to think about. So I think we do have to have some educational initiatives and attempts through those same mechanisms to get to those same young people. Thank you again. Here goes the tech in the middle of us in our politics, right? What they let through their filters, etc. But I don't think the I don't think we should stop in the traditional ways to try to reach young people, but I do think we have to adapt to the newer ways. Because again, just because someone puts up an influencer video does not mean it is factual and that it has been researched, etc. But we have to
I agree.
That's where people are, so that we have to adapt. Again, the messaging. I keep saying Biden administration might have to get some, partnerships going and collaborations going with certain influencers. I think on the Republican side, Black Republican influencers have become very good at this very notion. And there's a new book out called Grift. You should read it. I saw it on The View this morning being promoted, writing about how Black Republicans have evolved from the time of Abraham Lincoln to now, and how most of what they're saying, again, is for power and access to power and money. So I also kind of put that as a question. If we're saying to ourselves, okay, this is where young people are getting their information, and those are not folks who are necessarily vetted or may have some other interest in promoting another candidate. It's popular to say, why Black people vote for Biden? We need to get on some of the. It's popular to say that. You're going to get clicks if you say that. But is that true? Is that actually productive to say, stay away from the system, stay away, when our lives are going to be influenced by what happens from those who do vote every time. So all of that, it's controversy is going to be clickbait. Trying to tell people misinformation is going to be clickbait. So I think, it's up to us with the young people that we directly have in our families, our churches, our civic organizations, however you have access to a younger person that you can reason with one-on-one and talk about it. I think we got to start doing that, because the online influence is not going to change. But I do think leaving them to say, well, this is the reality, everything is on TikTok, it can be problematic, because again, there's a lot of misinformation and folks who might have alternative motives to tell young people what to do. And it might look cool. And again, it might be aesthetic, but it might not feed their interests long term. So we got to really think about this. I don't know if I have a solution for it, but I do agree with.
I don't. And you know what? And as we close out the show today, having this conversation with you, which I wanted to have. I wasn't expecting a solution. I want to just put it out there. I wasn't expecting a solution from you. I think we just need to have this discussion to amplify and to recognize that this dynamic exists at this moment, right? Like, we will have to see how Saturday pans out in terms of young voter turnout, right? Black voter turnout, all of those things on Saturday for South Carolina. But I think it's just an interesting part of the conversation. And I think that for those of us who do have a platform, we have a tremendous amount of responsibility to fact check, to have conversations that are rooted in truth, but at the same time, having conversations that will get people engaged and involved. And we do have to be visionaries. Like, being clickbait is not a thrill for me. You trust me and believe me, because your words can be taken out of context. People can, will troll you and go through this whole process. So that's not the thing. My thing is, let's have some serious intellectual as well as emotional discussions, right? Until we find to get to hopefully open up the floor to some new ideas. Now, do I want to see a Trump presidency based upon his record? No, not based upon his record. Do I want to see Black people free? Yes. But here's the big thing and as we close this out, Suzette, the big thing that I'm concerned about is, like, even I just saw that Snoop Dogg said that he has no problem with Trump because Trump pardoned one of his former colleagues, one of the co-founders of Death Row, Harry. I forgot Harry's last name, Harry O. But it's those type of things where people are like, the president, Trump is good for me because he did boom, 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 right? And now we're getting into this individualistic relationship, moving away from us being a part of a constituency, right? Us being a part of a larger group. And now we're focusing on, what can the president do for me? What can this person do for me versus what can the president do for us?
But
And
the point that you just made, I know we got to wrap, is the same
Yeah.
point that is like, would we want as a culture the influencers to gatekeep politics for us?
I don't think so, because I'm gonna be honest with you.
Stand up and say something like this, and so everybody clicks on it. He trends for however long. People are excited. Well, I Snoop Dogg down with Trump, but it does have an impact on young people's mind. So we have to start to train them to question the sources, not only the traditional ones, but the ones that they're seeing online. For proof of concept. Thank you that your homeboy got pardoned, if that's what he says he's basing it on. But when have black people, or should black people ever be single issue voters ever? And again, that's an influencer. Again, I don't know if he's done his homework. That's what I'm saying. Like the power that we as a culture are accepting our influencers to have, or allowing them to have, without teaching people to even kind of decipher who is this and what is the purpose of this type of messaging, and should it influence me, the individual that's not a multimillionaire like Snoop Dogg, the individual that has had so much of the benefits, one of the 3.4 million people that got their loan forgiven for $136 billion, that's the number, dollars. I'm sorry he didn't get the 44 million. Thank you, Supreme Court. But when we talk about actual issues of impact, whether it's not Snoop Dogg's homeboy got pardoned, shouldn't be like, again, it's going to lead in black media for however many days. So we as a culture, I don't know how we reinforce where is or how to help younger people decipher what is a reliable source, even online, for you making a decision with your vote. I'm okay with young people wanting more from their vote, but not having the information and the totality of what their impacts of what one person like a Snoop Dogg can say and what it would actually mean in your life is very dangerous.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there. Suzette Speaks, make sure y'all follow her. I know. Look, make sure y'all follow Suzette Speaks on all social media platforms. Support her on Pantheon. Make sure y'all check out her show, the Suzette Speaks Show, on YouTube. And God willing, we'll see her next week after this election, this primary election down in South Carolina. Suzette, thank you so much. Lots more. Thank you for being so good for the culture. Bye-bye.
My pleasure.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure y'all support us here on Black Star Network. Just go to our website today, download the app, follow us on social media, and give and support me. Find me on social media at The Real Faraji on Instagram. Stay tuned. Up next is Rolling Martin Unfiltered, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank y'all, Culture Crew. We got a lot more to talk about this week about this, so just stay tuned. But thank y'all for tuning in. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Peace.